How's it going, folks? Not a particularly exciting Tuesday if you're somebody who's currently holding on to large amounts of cryptocurrencies. The markets are down again, and we have a slew of information coming out about the macro situation in the US, which I want to dive into. But first of all, as always, let's start with prices because the situation here is pretty grim. Okay, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We're currently trading at less than $90,000, 89,947 here on the Coinbase spot chart. If we zoom that into the hourly time frame, you can see we bottomed out here just earlier at a price of $89,227. Over the last 24 hours, there have been $1 billion worth of liquidations on both the long and the short side. The majority of those, of course, being long positions liquidated out of the market, just over $700 million worth, to a counter of about $300 million worth of short liquidations. And the majority of these have been in BTC. Over the last hour, $100 million worth. And over the last 24 hours, about $562 million worth. So it's not just Bitcoin getting hammered, but Bitcoin is taking the vast majority of these long liquidations and the vast majority of these liquidations on both sides of the market. If we look at the liquidation map, we could see that the disparity is massively over to the short side, but overall open interest has reduced. Earlier in the week, well, earlier towards the end of last week, I should say, we were looking at up to 13, I believe even $15 billion worth of short liquidation risk in the market. Now that's come down to about $4 billion worth of short liquidation risk in the market right now. Of course, that is skewed massively to the short side, but the pattern of open interest reducing, i.e. the overall amount of liquidation risk on either side of the market, points towards the fact that the market is just getting really dismal, really upset, and people are basically giving up on trading this market on either side of the coin. And of course, you could see that reflected in the fear and greed index. We're currently at a score of 15. That means we are just about in extreme fear. The markets are not happy at all. If we look over at the S&P, you can see that the slip is matched here as well in equities, US equities. So we've broken local support down at $6,639. Currently trading at a price a little bit higher than that, but we did break that key support just earlier today. So what's going on? I think a lot of this comes down to the rocky situation in the US economy, as we've been speaking about this week. So we are, of course, still waiting for September, October, and November labor market statistics from the US. These are key statistics that the Fed uses to set monetary policy. If we look at the percentage chances of a 25 basis point rate cut at the next Fed meeting, that is down again to 43.4%. So well under a 50-50 chance of another 25 basis point rate cut to the base rate at the December meeting. Of course, the market tends to like rate cuts, or risk assets tend to like rate cuts, because it means investors get more money for holding their assets, holding their capital in risk assets relative to holding their capital in yield-bearing assets like bonds. But look at this. We've got a couple of key data points that I want to break down about the US macro situation. The first is this piece here about the Fed holding secret meetings about liquidity issues. So take a listen to this. New York Fed's secret emergency huddle sparks fears of brewing liquidity crisis on Wall Street. And the synopsis of this: early signals of a global credit crunch are flashing. The New York Fed has held a secret liquidity huddle, not announced. The Fed pumped $50.35 billion into markets. What they actually mean by this is banks basically making use of the Fed's standing repo facility, which is essentially short-term overnight stimulus. It backstops banks on their overnight lending. And to give you the blow-by-blow on this without reading the whole article to you, what this points to basically is a reduction of liquidity in the banking system. Use of this facility, this standing repo facility, is basically where banks go to, where they would usually be borrowing short-term from one another. So when those short-term interest rates spike, they go to the Fed standing repo facility. And the upshot of all of this is usually a increase in the use of that facility has preceded recessions. Okay, that happened in 2019 pre-COVID, and also happened in 2007, basically liquidity coming out of the banking system. And some people are calling this a canary in the coal mine about that situation. Now, important caveat to that is the Fed has encouraged banks to make use of this system, and they have been actively taking liquidity out of the system through their quantitative tightening program. So on that basis, this shouldn't be a massive surprise. But if we look at this, I mean, this is obviously a record use of that system. And if you look historically, that system or that facility, that standing repo facility, hasn't been used a great deal other than times preceding recessions. Of course, in 2019, we had the COVID situation, but the pattern is still there. And use of this and knowledge of use of this is definitely shocking markets. It's pointing towards a problem, which is the brewing liquidity issue in the banking system, but it's also scaring markets, just the fact that that is being used, the manifestation of that. And then the other side of this, we've also got Trump promising his $2,000 tariff checks, right? These are his stimulus checks by mid-2026. Important to make the distinction here, right? What we're talking about with the Fed standing repo facility is stimulus on the economy, but it's not an injection of liquidity. It's just giving banks access to really short-term loans, essentially 24 hours, to put liquidity back into the banking system to backstop that. Trump's $2,000 tariff checks are more like direct stimulus. Okay, that's why we call them stimulus checks. He is calling them tariff. What was he calling them? Tariff dividends. There you go. But we've got a date on when this is happening now, and I think fairly predictably the markets aren't reacting to that particularly well. First of all, because it's pretty wishy-washy, and second, because basically when these are going to finally come to fruition, if they do, is going to be basically just before the midterm elections, making it look more like a political bargaining chip, okay, a tool to try and win a vote. So if we just break this down, why it matters, putting a timetable on the checks is a significant step forward versus just suggesting the idea. Well, obviously, the dividends would require legislation. Treasury Secretary Scott Bassent has said last weekend, and it's not clear if Congress has the appetite. So, of course, we've got some hurdles to get over before this even happens, if it does. I've also heard more clarity on who that's actually going to be paid to, and I believe it is excluding anyone earning more than $100,000 a year, which would obviously exclude a massive portion of the US population. But key point here, tariff dividend in the middle of 2026 would mean the government would be putting a huge check in most voters' pockets on the eve of crucial midterm elections. And basically that's making this go down, in my opinion, like a bit of a flop, because you've got, first of all, the vagueness on when this is actually happening, and you've got the harsh reality of how much stimulus that's actually going to equate to, who it's actually going to be paid to. And then finally, you've got the fact that it's conveniently probably going to take as long as the 2026 midterm elections to actually come to fruition. So you've got that natural buffer there in the timeline, and also you've got the perhaps disappointment that it's essentially just going to be used like a political bargaining tool. So still, the main question that we're waiting for is, when are we going to get this October data released? We know that the September core employment data is due out this Thursday, and that's going to at least paint part of the picture. But the real question is, when are we going to see the October data, and what is that actually going to include? Because, of course, we were reading last week that although that October data is going to come out, is it actually going to be complete? Because whether or not you believe this, the excuse is they weren't able to carry out the in-person door-to-door checks during the government shutdown, which paint part of that picture. But the reason why we need to know is because the Fed needs to know, and the Fed needs that data, which is now potentially even more scarily going to be a 3-point moving average, September, October, and November. That is going to give them key data about the US labor market, and that is going to play directly back into all of these fears that we've got about the state of the US the state of the US economy, essentially right now, whether or not we are going into a recession again, and most importantly, how the Fed will react. How quickly will the Fed react? So we know that they're ending their quantitative tightening program, kind of on the rocks as to whether or not they would actually progress into quantitative easing, but we are starting to see signs of cracks forming in the US economy, and that is not breeding confidence into the markets. Now, unfortunately, you've got Bitcoin acting a lot like a risk asset, potentially leading, potentially lagging, but either way, we are down massively. And as I've said, down today, trading below $90,000, which isn't looking good at all. I don't think it's all over necessarily yet. I think basically markets are clearly in fear. This is kind of a snowball effect, right? Every time we break a downside level, more and more people get liquidated, more and more people just give up on the whole thing, and more people jump out of there. And meanwhile, you've got this whole US macro situation brewing, which isn't so good at all. It is perfectly possible that we see that data come out. It's better than expected. It's not showing massive decline in the US economy. And we start getting a clearer picture from the Fed as to how they're going to be managing monetary policy going forward. We see a rebound in risk assets, and we find a floor in Bitcoin. It would be an absolutely legendary trade, right, for a lot of guys buying into the dip here, particularly, as always, when most of the market is apparently expecting Bitcoin to just rotate into the bear market right now. There is a famous saying in markets which goes basically, the markets can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. This is why people get liquidated, right? Markets don't tend to follow rational logic to the letter, but they do tend to cause the most amount of pain for the most amount of people. And that's certainly what we're starting to see now, but I think this could obviously get way worse before it does get better. As always, the easiest hedge for this is if you're someone who believes in the future of Bitcoin, if you believe in Bitcoin as an inflationary hedge, if you believe in it as an alternative financial system even, you should be happy with lower prices. And if you are dollar cost averaging in over time, that's essentially how you get to be right most of the time. Basically what we mean, just to really break this down, right, to hammer the point home, if you have a basket of capital that you want to deploy into Bitcoin, the odds of you being right are so slim that it makes way less sense to just try and wait for the bottom, whatever that means, and then deploy all your capital at once. It makes much more sense to deploy that capital over time, i.e. you're getting a dollar cost average for the asset. And particularly if you ramp up that program of dollar cost averaging when markets are declining, it means you might not catch the actual bottom, but you'll be buying as prices are declining. Therefore, your average price is going down and down and down, and you're accumulating that basket of Bitcoin for lower and lower and lower prices over time in a more controlled way, because you believe ultimately in the long-term upside of the asset. And that is about all I've got for you right now. I think I've spoken for far too long already. Basically, we're waiting on September, October, and November jobs data out of the US. I think that is going to be absolutely key for what we see next. We have broken key levels to the downside in Bitcoin. It's not looking great. It's looking far from great, actually. But as always, if you believe in this long term, then now's the time to start dollar cost averaging, because there could very well be a situation where we surprise a lot of people, and whether or not that means a return to the bear market, right? It could just be a relief rally. If you are buying into these lower prices, if you're buying when others are fearful, that means you get to take part in most of that upside long term. But as always, not financial advice, purely my opinion, purely shared for entertainment purposes. Thanks so much for watching. Plenty more to come. Catch you in the next one.